At 14th overall, they started things off by drafting Jackson Smith. I had Jackson Smith a little bit lower than this, but I definitely see a world where he is potentially one of the best defensemen in this year's draft class, not named Matthew Schaefer. Smith brings talent out the wazoo. There is so much there to dig into with his game. He skates well, he's got skill, he's a confident offensive player at times, and I think with the right management and nurturing and ability to sort of juggle the good and the bad with him, he could turn out to be a really interesting defenseman at the NHL level. For me, the big issue was that as the year went on, watching him play with Tri-City, that fun aspect of his game, that offensive sense, kind of trailed off as time went on. He was taking more needless risks and just popping pucks on net from the middle of nowhere under pretty solid coverage, and shots would just get blocked and then he'd be chasing play back the other way. He was trying to throw hits and just missing. It was just a very strange thing to watch. I was waiting for him to become something that he just never was over the course of this season, but you still saw the potential that he could be there. I do really like this pick, and I especially like this pick because Smith is not going back to Tri-City next year, and he's going to what will likely be an absolute wagon of a hockey team with the Penn State Nittany Lions. I am really excited to see what that team looks like with him on it. I'm really excited to see what coaching can do for him there. I would be in absolutely no rush to take him out of college hockey either, so I think that your patience with him will be rewarded really greatly. I think that the talent level that he shows on the ice and the physical willingness might bait you into wanting him in the NHL a little sooner than later, but similar to a guy like a David Jiricek, I think the longer that you spend bringing him along slowly and not really rushing him along no matter how well he plays, I think he's going to turn out better in the end no matter what. Interesting player. I think he's got a long way to go to hit his ceiling, but there is something there that I really like, and at times he was in my top 10 for stretches of this season. It's just towards the end, every time I saw him, I went, it's just not there. The first couple games I saw were totally different, and I just am waiting for something that hasn't been there for months. So we'll see where it goes, but the talent floor is really strong. At 51st, they took a player that actually was a player that rose on my board at the end of the year quite a bit, in Will Moore. He's a player that came into the season with a little bit of fanfare. He ended my season at 34th on my list. So to get him at 51, I think is really good value. There were players I had ranked higher, but I see the argument for Will Moore. I thought his under 18 was really good. He's really dynamic and skilled. He's got a bit of a physical side to his game that I would love to explore a little bit more. His thing is more about hockey IQ, timing, when to use the skill he has, when to protect the puck, and how to protect the puck. He just seems to know how to make good reads in the game. I just would love to see more output, more of that confidence and offensive zone pushing to get to the scoring areas, get down low a little more, because his ability to generate offense off his own stick, at least during the regular season away from the under 18s, was a little bit underwhelming, but you did see those flashes. Once in a while, you really saw him drop a shoulder, pull pucks wide, drive wide on defensemen, attack the net, all these things that I think really matter, and if he can do that more in the future, I think he's got a bright future. Getting him here at 51 I think is a great pickup. I think this could sneakily be a really nice bet on a type of player that goes undervalued in the draft year they had, but had really good 16-year-old seasons that people seem to forget about, and maybe they recapture something really special the year after they're drafted, but there is a bit of a ways to go to get there. Theodore Hallqvist at 52, and this one was a little mystifying to me. I get it in the sense of you drafted a big, safe defenseman who I think is perfectly adequate at the boring stuff in hockey. He does have some good defensive abilities. His gap control is really good. He keeps his passing game really safe, really effective. Not the most exciting player here in the games that I've seen. Maybe there's a third pair guy here down the road. Maybe he's a foil for a more offensive leaning defenseman in the future, but Hallqvist was just a guy that didn't really move the needle for me a whole lot, and we'll see what happens. He's a blank slate to work with, and the defensive mind is there. The safety of his game is there. It's just not my type of player that I would have drafted this high. At 61st, they drafted Liam Pettersson, and Pettersson's been off and on my list since last summer. I feel like he's one of these guys that wants to play a much more high-end game than what he's capable of right now, but you're betting on him building the foundational tools to get there, and if he does, he could really be something. He wears number 65 for Växjö over in Sweden, and you can kind of tell why when you watch him. He just has that offensive confidence, that ability to step up from the blue line, that ability to carry the puck like a guy like Erik Karlsson does. He's not Erik Karlsson, I want to be clear, but it seems like he plays like the type of person who had an Erik Karlsson poster in his bedroom and grew up wanting to be him. At the end of the day, though, Liam Pettersson is a guy who loves to put the puck on net, he loves to play with the puck, but he's also a very good skater. Very mobile, very rangy, he's got some size as well. I thought he showed decently well in the extremely limited time that he showed at the men's level this year. So this is an interesting bet long term that for a second round pick, maybe it's a little bit higher than I would have taken him, but he's an interesting pick nonetheless, and I'm very curious to see where that one goes. At 91st overall, they drafted another toolsy mystery box defenseman in Brady Peddle. I had Peddle on my list and off my list over the course of this season, and I just think that Peddle is an intriguing package of size and mobility and some skill. He's a player that I think could be an intriguing bet, but at 91, I think it's a little bit high for me, but there still is an interesting player here. I do believe that you leave him in college and you never know what can come out of it. I wouldn't expect a huge offensive output from him, but there is a bit of an offensive game to speak of, so we'll see what happens, but an interesting pick at 91, even if it isn't the guy that I would have gone with here. At 103rd, they drafted Matus Kuharczyk. I heard a lot of hype about this guy, and when I watched him over the course of this season, I'm not sure I saw the same things out of him as I saw out of players that even went after him in this year's draft class. The player that's like him that went immediately after this that I would have really been pushing for is Gustav Hillstrom, but Kuharczyk does have an intriguing package of size and some good confidence through pressure, and I thought he looked okay playing professional hockey in Czechia this season, but I'm not exactly sure what type of a player he is or what his specialty will be in the NHL, but maybe you could develop something in there, and who knows. Closing out their draft class, they took Nathan Quinn at 164th, and this surprised me a little bit. I saw Quinn a few times this season and was really impressed with his sort of small area skill and passing ability. He times things really, really well, moving the puck, especially around the offensive zone. He was part of a really successful line in the QMJHL this year, and I think he was a big part of why they had quite a lot of success there. Again, very smart, very well-timed passer, really solid playmaking center who I think is one of these players that might just not have enough to crack and stay in the NHL one day, but at this point in the draft, I think it's a perfectly acceptable bet to make. There's some stuff there that you can definitely work on with regards to his hockey sense and passing ability, so we'll see where it goes from here, but I mean, at 164th, you can't really complain too much about players, and I'm not going to complain about Nathan Quinn too much in this spot.